Hey guys, Andrew Shrout here on the sideboard. I'm here with Steve Mann, one of the at-large competitors for the Players Championship. Actually, the very last at-large competitor.
Yes, sir.
I know we had a little stress on the old ticker last week.
Yep.
But you made it. You're here, and we're here now to talk about your standard deck. So you are playing White-Blue Heroic.
I am.
And this is a deck that it's not new exactly. People know what this deck is. So we'll kind of briefly run through the cards here.
Okay. Yeah. The idea of this deck is to play a creature that has Heroic and protect it until your opponent takes 20 damage.
Okay.
And by protecting these creatures, they get larger, so they make your plan of dealing 20 damage much faster.
Okay. So until they take 20 damage, that can only be a couple turns, ideally.
Correct.
So of course the 12 heroic creatures, every heroic deck plays these.
Yeah, they're the best.
And then this was a little bit of a mix-up here.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing blue and white because it's the best heroic colors, and one drops are the best heroic creatures.
Okay.
They can't all be favored hoplite, so we have a couple of 0/4s.
Gotcha.
They're also very good against burn spells, so it's actually better than hoplite sometimes.
Okay. Seeker of the Way, kind of an honorary heroic creature.
Yeah, there weren't enough good heroic creatures, so we have this guy. But he's great at racing. Sometimes he'll do the job by himself.
All right. Defiant Strike, of course, it cycles. You probably play like 6 that card if you could.
Yeah.
And then Ordeal of Thassa, I think, is also the ubiquitous 4 of in all heroic decks, right?
Yeah, it is the best card in the deck. You gotta keep on drawing shelter cards, and this lets you do it.
Okay. Speaking of, God's Willing, probably the marquee protection spell.
Yeah, it's great. 1 mana, save your guy from a 3 mana removal spell. You know, they can't keep that up for the rest of the game.
Sure. And of course, you only have so many God's Willing, so Feat of Resistance, kind of a proxy God's Willing. God's Willing's 5 through 6.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on the next slide, we see God's Willing number 7.
It does some extra things, you know, End Hostilities is a card. It'll save your multiple guys from End Hostilities. What else does it do? It saves. There's another card I was thinking about, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, basically mass sweepers. It's good against.
All right. Aqueous Form. This is a 4 of, which is I don't think is the stock number of this card either. So
yeah.
Tell me about why you chose to play 4 of this card.
I'm playing 4 of this card because I played in the first 20K Open last weekend, and Zach Jesse almost swept the Swiss.
Yep.
You know, very decisively with this deck. He had 4 of this card, and it's great because, you know, you can only play so many protection spells. So you will run out of them before your opponent can kill your creature. This card lets you kill your opponent before they draw more removal spells than you have protection spells.
Okay.
As well as scrying every turn, so you know you're definitely drawing a good spell every turn while this is in play.
So it's just an important part of the racing puzzle.
Yes.
Ordeal of Heliod, I assume, kind of similarly.
Yeah, racing is a big deal with this deck. You know, like, you're going to have one guy, they're going to have a bunch of guys, they can swarm you pretty easily, so you got to gain life.
All right. And then a couple of 1-ofs. I guess these are basically like, where I don't want, what are we even up to now? This is God's Willing's 8 and 9 or something like that?
Stubborn and Owl, yeah. Sometimes this will be used as a removal spell. Actually, a lot of times it will, because you'll have like a 6/6, and they'll just be trying to race you, of course. And this will kill 2 guys.
Sure. So potential blowouts with the Triton Tactics, and then Stratusfall, basically a 5th Aqueous Form, I suppose.
Yeah, pump your guy, draw a card, keep the gas flowing. Stubborn Denial is a nod to things like Crackling Doom, or again, End Hostilities. Crackling Doom is like the scariest card to play against with this deck, so you must counter it.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about, we won't talk about the mana base too much. It's a mana base, you can't help with it. Let's talk a little about how you ended up on this deck. What is it about White-Blue Heroic that like drew you to it?
Well, like I said, Zach did great in that tournament. He crushed me. He almost beat me on a mulligan to 3.
Okay.
When he mulled to 3. So he made the deck look very good, and then I went and looked at the coverage archives, and lo and behold, Tom Ross and Joe Lissette went X and 1 in the Invitational standard portion with Heroic. So, you know, I was thinking maybe this is a great deck, and I just never really gave it a shot.
Okay.
And played a bunch of games with Logan this week, and it is actually a really great deck.
Okay.
So,
just really impressed you.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about your preparation for this event. I know you mentioned that you've been working with Logan Mize. It's a small tournament. There's 16 players. You know a lot of these guys. You're friends with a lot of them. It's pretty easy to put a lot of them on a pretty narrow range. So
yeah.
How much does that affect your deck choice and your card selection?
I tried to not let it affect me that much because I feel like these players are good enough that, like, if they need to switch to a better deck, they will.
Okay.
You know, and they'll play it efficiently. But that being said, we did make a few lists of what people are likely to play, and I don't think Mardu is very popular amongst these players, and which is this deck's worst matchup. So I think this is a pretty good choice.
All right. We'll talk about the sideboard really quickly. Were any of the sideboard slots specifically chosen because you're expecting to face a specific person?
Not really.
Not really. All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I keep hoping. I just want that story to come up. But all right, we'll run through the sideboard cards then, just kind of one by one. Like, what are they for? Stubborn Denial.
Stubborn Denial and Hostilities, Crackling Doom, basically.
Okay.
Ordeal of Heliod, red decks, the Jeskai token deck. Anything that has a tough time killing your creatures, but really puts you on the back foot.
Okay.
Erase, you have to kill Whip of Erebos, provided they actually have a board presence, because like it's tough to erase them when they're gaining, you know, tons of life with their huge creatures.
Okay.
Glare of Heresy, great for the mirror match. That's probably about it, I'd say. And Treasure Cruise, great against black decks. They're gonna try to, you know, draw more removal than you have giant idiots. So this lets you protect them or draw into another one should your first one die.
Sure. And then some additional ways to protect your creatures. I think we're up to what, God's Willing's 10 and 11 now.
Yeah, I mean, this is another Mortal's Ardor. It's like more copies of Ordeal of Heliod, and a Johnny's Presence again, saving your guys from mass sweepers. Pretty important.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Thanks.
Stick around. We've got plenty more coverage coming of the Players' Championship here in Roanoke.